here last week. Well, just to give you a background, um, in my 40s, I've been in ministry. Next year will be 20 years. I've been preaching. Um, I haven't always been a preacher. Of course, you can tell just by my appearance. Yeah, I wasn't always a preacher. I was one also with this background. You know, uh, just to give you where I come from. Started out Sherman Maintenance Projects. Of course, from Waco. You know where it's at.
Right.
At the age of 4, that's when my mama passed away. Now, I was born into the world. Grandparents died before I was born. I never got the chance to meet them. So when my mama died at the age of 4, that was a struggle. My uncle, my mama's brother, his wife, my aunt, they ended up taking me and two of my other siblings in. My oldest two brothers, they were already grown at the house. So we moved about 2 blocks away from Parside Village, right there on 7th Street. And so, growing up, struggling, I was an angry child, you know, uh, dealing with that. And when you're young and something like that happens, you don't know how to deal with it. So I dealt with it the best way I knew how, and that was basically fighting. I was one I loved to fight because I felt like I had to get that anger out because I'm dealing with the loss of mama. Well, at the age of 12, I remember I got off the school bus. Now there's 5 of us, but I have one sister, from mama, and then I have another sister by nephew. And so I remember I got off the school bus. I have like kind of diagonal from the school bus yard, and my sister on my daddy's side, she was over there, her and her husband. I go in the house and they like, it's her husband, my aunt, my uncle, they all sitting in the living room. They're like, I need to tell you something. With my sister on my daddy's side, she says, Daddy died last night. And so I just nodded my head, yeah, I ain't saying anything. I didn't ask any questions. I went to my room. Yes, nodded my head, yeah. Well, when I got in my room, I started crying. I didn't cry because he died. Now, only remember seeing him probably 2-3 times out of my life. Like Tupac, him and Scarface, they were always my best rappers, my favorite rappers. But my favorite song by Pac was Dear Mama. And in that song, he says that when his daddy passed away, he didn't cry because my anger wouldn't let me fear for a stranger. And I remember when that song came out and it got to that, I felt that because that's how I felt at the time. I didn't cry because he died. What I cried was my history is now gone. Here I am at 12 years old, and I realized that one day if I have my own kids, they'll never get to meet their grandparents, just like I did. So I'm crying. So by the time I'm about 15, I'm ripping and running in the streets. If I wasn't hanging out in East Waco, because most of my family was from East Waco, I wasn't hanging out in East Waco. I'm over here hanging out in the villages, that type of stuff. Just riding my bike all through there, all that. Well, by the time I turned 15, I ended up getting in trouble with the law. I had a burglary habitation, which it was a bus driver that went to my school. I decided once I found out I wanted to be stupid, and do something like that.
Right.
And didn't steal, no, but still was burglary habitation.
Right.
And so I remember I went home because I didn't think nothing of it. I'm in my room. My uncle who raised me, man, he was hardcore. He was from the streets himself. He, 1930s, them folks there, they didn't play that. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I remember he called my name to come to the front door. There's the bus driver, 2 police officers. And the police officer said, well, the bus driver said that you broke into her house and took some items and all that. And my uncle, my boy didn't do that. You know, he was so sure. But then she said something that made me feel so bad. And so I confessed. And I saw it in his eyes and his face. It like broke his heart. And they ended up arresting me. I ended up going to juvenile and all that. And by the time I ended up getting out, I remember he told me, well, there's 3 people you don't lie to. He said, your parents, your doctor, and your lawyer. He said, all of them can help you. You know, and it stuck with me. You know, it stuck with me. And then I ended up on papers for 3 years. But man, here I am, I'm still in the streets. By this time, I'm carrying a pistol on my hip. You know, I'm doing all of this because around that time in the 90s, it seemed like there were things, the times done changed. People didn't want to fight anymore. You know, everybody now pistol playing. So I'm like, oh, have me one too. So I'm doing all of this here. And I think the only thing that slowed me down was at the age of 21 when my kid's mama ended up getting pregnant with my first child, which is my daughter. And you know how you probably don't want kids at that age. You're like, man, I don't want no kids. And you end up having them anyway. Well, it kind of slowed me down, but it didn't slow me down all the way. Still in the streets, still in the clubs. Next thing you know, I started feeling this change. Here I am, 23, I'm starting to feel this change. But I ended up selling weed in my apartments, only in my apartments. I ain't want to go outside the apartments. I just want to do it right here. And it was only because I lost my job, and I'm like, no, man, okay, my baby need to eat this, that, and the other. So I chose to go and do that, right? Well, it really didn't last that long. I'm starting to feel this change. I'm not understanding the change. I'm really not. I remember we ended up going to the club, which was Grand Central Station at that time. I'm on the wall. I'm never on the wall when I go to the club. I'm on the dance floor. You know how it is. I'm trying to get up on something. I'm trying to see who I can, take home or whatever. I got a baby mama at the house, but I ain't trying to wipe this person right here that's in the club. You know how it is. It's man. We men, right? And so that was my attitude. But this time, the last night I'm in the club, I'm on the wall. My brother, he passed by me. He said, man, you all right? I said, I'm good. But day one, he passed by me like, Cuddy, what's going on, man? I'm good, straight. But I ain't understand. And so, next thing you know, one day I'm at home all by myself. And my kid's mama, she was just the baby mama at that time. Her and my oldest daughter, they weren't there. And I'm watching TV, sitting on the couch, all by myself. And I feel it in my spirit. Something says pray. I turned the TV off. I got down on my knees and I started praying. Next thing you know, me and tears flowing from my eyes. It was like an experience that I would never forget. So after I prayed and everything, it's like I'm feeling more of this change. And so what I ended up doing, there's a pastor that, a friend of mine that I've been knowing. I went to him. I said, hey man, how do you know when God is calling you to preach? He said, oh, you'll know, man, God won't never leave you alone about it, and this, that, and the other. And so I was like, okay. So I still didn't do anything about it though. So December of 2004, my uncle, the one who raised me, he's the only dad I ever know. You know what I'm saying? At times your uncles can be your dads. And so he's the only dad I ever known. I get the call that night, he died. He passed away. So here it is. You heard what Minister Jason said yesterday about scars. So here it is. I've been scarred since I lost mama and no grandparents and daddy. And now the one who I've known all my life to be my daddy, my uncle, he died. And so my kid's mama, she takes me to East Waco and I'm crying. I remember I'm like punching the dashboard and I'm crying and I'm broken. And so got through there but didn't get through it. Scarred. Next thing you know, the next month, which was January, that's when I went ahead and married my kid's mama. We ended up, she ended up getting pregnant again. It's another girl. I was hoping for a boy, but it's another girl, you know. And so I remember my aunt went over to tell her about it, and you know her response is, "Y'all gonna stop having all these babies and all that. We only have one." But we, yeah, but we had a family reunion June of 2005. Our family haven't had a family reunion since like 1987. And so for our family to get back together, we had in Cameron Park, you know, the Irvin family. We about to do this. You know, it's fun. My aunt, she out there, everybody out there now. Mind you that next week after the family reunion, my aunt was go into surgery to get her leg amputated. She had diabetes. She wanted to quit smoking. She wanted to stop doing anything. Doctors told her to stop. She wouldn't stop. Her attitude was, "This is my life." Well, here I am in Temple. These CBS stores y'all see around here. I had a hand in helping to remodel those stores when they first jumped on the scene. So I'm in Temple. We remodeling one in Temple. My phone is off. You know, bill wasn't paid. I get to the house, I see a note, you know, by my ex-wife at the time. And he said, told me one of my brothers called and said, "My aunt passed away 6 months ago. My uncle just died." Yeah. Now my aunt, the two that raised me. So now I'm like, I remember I dropped to my knees, started crying, but then I jumped back up because I remember she was suffering. She was this, she was, you know, I was like, nah, she was suffering, man. There's no point in me, you know, dropping to my knees crying out of anything, or to be glad that she no longer has to suffer. So, next thing you know, October of 2005, I prayed to God, asked him for a sign if he was calling me to preach, if he was calling me into the ministry. He gave me a sign. And so I wanted to make sure it was him, so I asked him for a second sign. Kid you not, before I was able to get the second sign completely out, he already shown it to me. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna play with it. So that Sunday, Pastor Frank Montgomery, I stood up for the church and I confessed my calling that God has called me to preach. And I remember he was like the happiest one, because he always believed I was gonna be a preacher, but he